The cold wind swept across the silver plains of Virella, a distant planet known for its icy beauty and silent skies. On the edge of the royal city, a line of Virellan girls stood in silence. Each wore ceremonial robes of pale blue, their expressions unreadable, their eyes filled with fear, sadness, or quiet strength. Among them stood Leora, her gaze fixed on the ground. Today was not an ordinary day. It was the day of the treaty exchange. The long war between Earth and the Virellan Empire had finally ended after years of conflict. To ensure lasting peace, both sides agreed to a strange tradition from old Virellan customs, gifting brides as peace offerings. It was a symbolic gesture, meant to unite bloodlines and show trust. But for many, especially the brides, it felt like something else. Leora's name had been chosen by the High Council, not because she was royalty, but because her bloodline was noble and unspoken for. Her father, once a high-ranking commander, had died in the final battle. With no family left and no say in her future, she was added to the list. She didn't cry when her name was called. She didn't cry when they placed the silver chain around her neck, marking her as part of the ceremonial exchange. But now, as the human starship descended from the clouds, its engines humming gently, she felt her eyes sting. Tears. She told herself they were just from the wind. Inside the ship, Callan Ward adjusted his jacket for the 10th time. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't even a real diplomat. Callan was a systems engineer from Earth, assigned to the peace mission because of his knowledge of Virellan technology. The council had selected him as one of the grooms to receive a Virellan partner. It wasn't a choice, it was an honor, they said. A reward. He didn't feel honored. He felt unsure. When the ramp lowered and the girls stepped forward, Callan saw her, Leora. Her posture was perfect, her steps quiet, her face unreadable. But something about her caught his attention. Maybe it was the way she didn't look at anyone. Maybe it was the way she stood so still like a statue carved from winter. "This is Leora," the translator announced. "She is yours according to treaty law." Callan didn't know what to say. He simply nodded and stepped aside, letting her walk past him into the ship. She said nothing. The journey to Earth was long and quiet. Leora stayed in the small private room given to her. She didn't ask for anything, didn't speak unless spoken to, and didn't complain. Callan left meals at her door, small notes written in both Earth Standard and translated Virellan. He tried to make her comfortable, but she didn't respond. One day he found her sitting near the observation window. Stars drifted by like tiny lanterns in the dark. She didn't hear him at first. "I thought you might like to sit here," Callan said gently. She turned, her pale violet eyes meeting his. There was no anger in her gaze, only emptiness. "I don't dislike the stars," she replied quietly. It was the first thing she said in 3 days. He smiled a little. "Me neither." He sat nearby, not too close, not pressing her to talk. Just being there, they watched in silence. As they neared Earth, Callan's mind wandered. He remembered his mother's words before he left. "Don't think of her as something given to you. Think of her as someone with her own storm to walk through." Now, watching Leora stare at the stars, he wondered what her storm looked like. What? Had she lost? What did she fear? He didn't ask. Not yet. The ship landed on Earth in a secure diplomatic zone. Callan's home was prepared ahead of time. It wasn't a palace, just a small modern house near the forested outskirts of the capital city. Leora followed him inside, quiet as always. "This is your room," he said, showing her the guest room. It had soft lights, warm walls, and a bed with handmade quilts. "You can change it if you like, make it yours." She nodded but didn't enter the room. "You don't have to talk to me," he added. "Just know that I'm not here to control you. I didn't want this treaty, but I'll try to make your stay peaceful." Still no answer. But before she walked away, she whispered, "Thank you." That night, Callan sat by himself in the kitchen, drinking warm tea. His mind was full of questions. Could he earn her trust? Could two people from different worlds find a way to live without hurting each other? In her room, Leora stood by the window. She opened it slightly, letting Earth's breeze touch her skin. It was different from home, warmer, softer, but it carried new sounds and smells. Flowers she didn't know, creatures she couldn't name. Her fingers touched the edge of the silver chain around her neck, a reminder of what she was now, a gift, a symbol, a bride. She lay on the bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. No guards, no orders, just silence. For the first time, the silence didn't feel like a cage. Outside, a storm began to brew in the distance. But inside that small house, two strangers from different stars lay awake, both wondering the same thing. What comes next? The next morning, Earth sunlight entered the small room. It was golden and warm, not like the cold white light of Virella. Leora sat on the edge of the bed, her hands resting on her lap. She hadn't slept much. The strange sounds outside, the birds, the wind in the trees, even the humming of machines, kept her awake. She walked to the window and slowly opened it wider. The air was filled with the smell of flowers and grass. A soft breeze touched her face. It was different from her, home yet not unpleasant. Then she heard footsteps outside her door. "Leora," Kalen's voice called softly. "I left breakfast on the table. I'll be working in the garage if you need anything." No orders, no demands, just a message. She waited until his steps faded, then stepped out quietly. On the dining table was a plate of food, simple human breakfast, bread, fruit, and something warm in a bowl. Next to it was a note in her language. "You don't have to eat if you don't like it, but I hope it helps start the day better." She stared at the note for a long time. No one had ever written her a message like that before. She took a bite. It was strange. Not bad, just new. But she finished it all. Outside, Callan wiped his hands on a cloth and stepped back from the generator. He was upgrading the energy system in case Leora needed environmental adjustments. Virellans were sensitive to heat. He didn't know if she would ever ask for help, but he wanted to be ready. He looked up as the house door opened. Leora stepped out slowly, her pale blue robe fluttering slightly in the breeze. She glanced at the small flower bed beside the walkway, curious. "Those are marigolds," Callan said, not too loud. "They like the sun." Leora didn't speak at first. Then she asked, "Do they grow everywhere?" "Not everywhere. Just where it's warm enough." "Want to see the rest of the garden?" She hesitated, then gave a small nod. The garden was simple but cared for. Callan had planted flowers from different regions of Earth. As they walked, he pointed to each one, telling her its name. She listened, asking small questions. "Do you grow food too?" she asked. "Only a few vegetables," he smiled. "But I've been thinking about adding more. Do you like gardening?" Leora paused. "On my planet, I helped care for the frost vines. They only bloom under moonlight." "That sounds beautiful." "It is," she whispered. "They shimmer like stars." For a moment, her face looked less distant. Days passed and a new rhythm formed. Leora kept to herself but no longer avoided him. She ate meals at the table, sometimes while Callan worked nearby. They spoke little, but their silence was no longer cold. It was calm. One evening, a power fluctuation caused the lights to flicker. Callan rushed to the control panel, trying to fix it. Leora followed, curious. "I know Virellon systems," she said. "May I see?" He stepped aside. She studied the wiring, her hands moving with precision. With a few adjustments, the system stabilized. Callan blinked. "That was impressive." "I was trained in tech repair," she said simply, "before the war." He nodded. "I could use your help more often." She gave a quiet, almost shy reply. "If you wish." Later, Callan brought out 2 mugs of tea and sat with her on the small porch. The sky above them was filled with stars. For a while, they just looked up. "This planet," Leora began. "It's loud, but It has soft places. That's a good way to describe it, Callan said. I've lived here all my life, but I guess I never thought of it like that. She turned to him. Why did you accept the treaty gift? He took a deep breath. I didn't ask for it. I was told I was chosen. But I didn't see you as a gift, not once. I see you as someone who didn't choose this either. She didn't reply right away. Her fingers tightened slightly on the cup. No one ever asked me if I wanted to leave, she said. Not until now. Callan didn't interrupt. He just listened. You haven't tried to command me, she added. Why? He looked at her, serious. Because I don't own you, you're not mine, you're here, and I want you to feel free, even if it takes time. For a long moment there was silence again. Then softly she said, Thank you. And this time it wasn't just polite. It was real. That night, as Leora sat in her room, she touched the silver chain around her neck. It no longer felt heavy. She removed it and placed it gently in a drawer, not as an act of rebellion, but as a small step toward becoming her own again. Callan, sitting in his study, looked at a picture of his old crew. People he once worked with during the war. Many had left Earth. Others were gone. He wondered what they would say if they knew he was sharing a home with someone once called the enemy. He didn't care. All he knew was that Leora wasn't his enemy. She was someone learning how to live again, just like he was. As the days grew longer, the quiet house began to feel less empty. Leora placed a small frost crystal on the windowsill, a memory of her home. Callan began to label their plants in both languages. The distance between them was still there, but now it was smaller, and in its place something new was beginning. Not love yet, but something like understanding. And sometimes that's where love begins. The seasons on Earth changed faster than Leora expected. The sun rose earlier now and the winds were softer. Trees outside the house had grown green, and new flowers bloomed in Callan's garden. It reminded Leora of something she hadn't felt in a long time, gentle warmth. She had been living in the house for nearly a month now. The silence between her and Callan was no longer filled with fear or awkwardness. They still spoke little, but when they did, their words felt easy, natural. One morning, Callan stood at the door holding a basket. I'm going to the flower fields just outside the forest. I'd like to show you something, if you're comfortable. Coming with me. Leora paused. Are there many people? No. He smiled. Just wind, flowers, and open sky. She nodded. The walk was long, but peaceful. Birds sang in the trees, and small animals darted between the bushes. Callan walked, a few steps ahead, letting her set her own pace. He didn't speak unless she did. He only looked back every now and then just to make sure she was okay. When they reached the top of a small hill, Leora stopped walking. Before her stretched a wide field full of blue wildflowers. The sight made her chest tighten, not in pain, but in something deeper. These flowers. They looked just like the stelra blooms of Virella. They bloom only in spring, Callan said. I thought they might remind you of home. Leora stepped forward, slowly kneeling among the blossoms. Her fingers touched the petals gently. For the first time, a soft smile appeared on her face. They sat together under a tree. Callan handed her a small piece of fruit freshly cut and placed on a wooden tray. Leora accepted it, still silent, still watching the flowers sway in the breeze. You seem peaceful, Callan said. I am, she replied. For the first time since I arrived. He nodded. I'm glad. Leora looked at him. Did you grow all the flowers in your garden by hand? Yes, Callan said. My mother taught me. She said flowers are a message of care. Even if people don't speak, plants show if a place is loved. Leora's eyes drifted back to the field. Then you must care deeply. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned golden, Leora did something unexpected. She reached into her robe and pulled out a small silver charm. It was a frost leaf from Virella. made of crystal and light metal. "I brought this from home," she said. "It was my mother's. I thought I'd bury it here, but now I want to place it in your garden." Kaelin looked surprised. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "It belongs somewhere, kind." The next day, they buried the frost leaf beneath a new patch of soil. Leora planted a flower above it, something called moonvine, which only bloomed at night. She touched the soil gently as if saying goodbye to a part of herself and also, maybe, hello to something new. Each day after that, Leora became a little more open. She started asking questions about Earth, its weather, its seasons, its languages. Callan gave her old books and taught her simple phrases in Earth Standard. She read with quiet focus and even corrected him once when he said a Virellan word wrong. "You're learning fast," he said. "I enjoy learning," she replied. "It helps me feel less lost." One day he found her organizing the tools in his garage. He had no idea she knew how to use half of them. "These are Virellan style," she said. "You've modified them well. Would you like to build something together?" he asked. She smiled again, slightly but more than before. "Yes." Working side by side, they built a small cooling unit for her room using a blend of Earth and Virellan tech. It worked perfectly. That night, Callan saw her sleeping peacefully for the first time, wrapped in soft blankets under the gentle hum of the machine they had built together. Later that week, rain came. Gentle, steady rain that fell like music on the roof. Leora stood on the porch watching it with fascination. Virella rarely had rain. Their planet had frozen clouds and falling frost, not this soft water. "Can I step into it?" she asked. Callan nodded. "Of course." She stepped out, letting the rain touch her hands, her face, her hair. She laughed softly, her first real laugh. It was small, but Callan heard it, and it stayed with him all night. One evening, as they shared a quiet meal, Leora finally asked, "Do you regret this arrangement?" Callan set down his fork. "No, I didn't expect it, but I don't regret meeting you." She looked down. "I did at first. I was afraid. I thought I would be a prisoner here. And now," she met his eyes, "now I feel not free, but no longer locked." He smiled. "That's more than I could have hoped for." Before going to sleep that night, Leora looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes, once filled with fear, now held something else. Not full joy, not yet, but a light that had been missing. She touched her cheek and whispered, "Thank you, Earth, for giving me space to breathe." Callan, sitting near the fireplace, opened an old book and began to write. Not technical notes. Not reports, just thoughts he wrote. Today she smiled. Today she laughed. Today she began to bloom. The peaceful days that Leora and Callan shared were soon shadowed by news from afar. One morning, as Callan was finishing breakfast, a secure message arrived from the Virellan Empire. The government had sent a request for Leora's return. The message was clear. Her family insisted she had been sold unfairly. The treaty might be in danger. The leaders wanted her back, to restore their honor. Callan read the message quietly, then looked toward Leora, who was tending to a small plant by the window. Her expression was calm, but her hands trembled slightly. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. "Leora, they want you to come back. You can choose. No one will force you here." She nodded slowly, then looked out the window toward the distant mountains. "I did not choose to leave home, but I must choose now whether to return." The next days were filled with silence and thoughts. Callan gave her space but stayed near. He wanted to support her, not push her. One afternoon, a ship arrived to take Leora home if she wished. The crew was respectful but firm. The moment was heavy. Leora packed only a few things: a frost crystal necklace, a small book from Earth, and a single bloom from Callan's garden. She walked outside with Callan to the waiting ship. The sky was overcast and a cold wind blew, echoing the uncertainty in her heart. At the boarding ramp, Leora paused. Her eyes met Callan's. For a moment, Everything felt frozen. The people watching held their breath. She stepped forward, then suddenly stopped. Turning back, her voice was steady and clear. "I am not a prize to be taken." The crew looked surprised. She continued, "I will decide where I belong." Kalen stepped closer, offering his hand. "Wherever you choose, I will stand with you." Leora looked at his hand, then back at the ship. Slowly, she took his hand. Together, they walked back toward the house. Not as prisoner and master, but as two people who had begun to understand each other. That night, the storm broke over the land. Rain poured hard. Thunder rolled and lightning lit the sky. Inside the house, Leora and Callan sat near the fire. The storm was loud, but inside was warm and safe. Leora reached for Callan's hand. "Thank you for letting me choose." Callan squeezed gently. "Your choice is yours. Always." For the first time, Leora smiled fully. No fear. No doubt. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "I will speak to the council. I will tell them my truth." Callan nodded. "And I will be by your side." The next morning, Leora and Callan traveled to the city. The halls of the council were tall and cold. The Virellan leaders waited, their eyes sharp and questioning. Leora stood tall. She spoke with calm strength. "I came here as part of a treaty, not by my own will. But I have lived and grown since then. I have learned kindness and respect." She looked at the council. "I do not belong to anyone. I am free to choose my path." The room was silent. After a moment, the council leader nodded slowly. "You speak with wisdom, Leora. We will honor your choice." Returning home, Leora felt lighter. The weight of being a gift was lifted. She was no longer an object, but a woman who had found her voice. Callan smiled at her, proud. "You faced the storm." "And the storm passed," she replied. Together they walked into the garden. The sun broke through the clouds, shining on the flowers they had nurtured. Over the following weeks, their bond deepened. They shared stories, dreams, and quiet moments. Leora's laughter came more easily now. One day, as they sat by the river, she reached for Callan's hand. "Do you think," she asked, "love can grow from pain and loss?" Callan looked at her, eyes warm. "I believe it can grow from anything, if given care and time." Leora smiled, a true smile, full of hope. That night, as stars filled the sky, Leora whispered, "I am beginning to bloom." Callan smiled back. "And I will be here to help you grow." The story of two souls from different worlds was no longer one of sadness. It was a story of choice, courage, and love blossoming in the most unexpected place. The sun was shining brightly over the small garden where Leora and Callan stood side by side. The soft wind carried the scent of flowers, both from earth and from Virella. The frost leaf charm Leora had brought from home was now buried beneath a patch of blooming moon vines. The garden was no longer just a place of plants. It had become a symbol of their shared journey. Today was special. They had invited friends, both human and Virellan, to celebrate not a treaty, but a new beginning. The union between two worlds, joined not by law or force, but by choice and love. Leora wore a dress made from both Virellan silk and earth fabric. The colors mixed softly, deep blue and warm gold. Her pale skin glowed gently in the sunlight, and her eyes sparkled with something new. Joy. Callan adjusted his collar nervously, but a calm smile spread across his face. This was their day, their story. The guests arrived, many curious but respectful. Some had known Leora only as a symbol of the treaty. Now they saw her as a woman who had found her place. Children from both worlds ran among the flowers, their laughter mingling in the air. The sound was unlike anything Leora had heard in a long time. She watched the children play and felt a warmth in her heart she never thought possible. Callan took her hand gently. "You've come far." Leora nodded, squeezing his hand. "And it feels like home." Later, as the sun began to set, Callan and Leora stood together, looking over the garden. The horizon was painted with soft colors, blending earth and sky. "You know," Callan said softly, "I never believed in fate. But meeting you changed that." Leora smiled, her eyes shining. "I used to think love was just a story. Now I know it can grow from the smallest seed, even in the coldest frost." Callan pulled her close. "Our love is that seed." She rested, her head on his shoulder. "And I will nurture it always." That night, as they sat beneath the stars, Leora spoke quietly. "I want to tell my story, not as the bride sold to a human, but as a woman who chose love." Callan nodded. "I will help you tell it." Together they began writing letters, speaking to people on Varela and Earth. They shared their journey of pain, growth, and hope. Slowly, more people began to see the beauty in their story. The treaty was no longer just a political tool. It became a bridge between worlds. Days turned into months, and the garden grew fuller. Leora and Callan worked side by side, planting new flowers, building new memories. One morning, Leora held a small bundle wrapped in soft cloth. Inside was a tiny sprout, an earth seedling, carefully nurtured. "This is for you," she said. "A new beginning." Callan smiled, eyes bright with hope. "For us, their life was not perfect, but it was real. A life built on trust, respect, and love." Leora's tears had dried long ago. Her smile now shone brightly, lighting the way for others who might come after. In a universe often marked by conflict and fear, their story was proof that understanding and kindness could bloom. And in the heart of that garden, two souls from different stars had found home, together.